All right, these are just three stories I saw today that fit in together, the New World Order's war on your children, which they consider their children. The first one is titled In Joyless Nanny State Called America, Governments Prohibit Sledding. It says no one tracks how many cities have banned or limited sledding, but the list grows every year. One of the latest is in Iowa, where the city council is moving ahead with a plan to ban sledding in all but 2 of its 50 parks. Marie Ware, the leisure services manager, says we have all kinds of parks that have hills on them. We can't manage the risks at all those places. It says most people recognize that cities must restrict potentially dangerous activities to protect people and guard against costly lawsuits. In the past, people might have embraced a Wild West philosophy of individuals being solely responsible for their actions, but now they expect government to prevent dangers. It's a great idea on the frontier, but we don't live on the frontier anymore. I don't agree with anything that was just said by me. I completely, all those words, wrong. All right, now moving on to something a whole lot more serious. Child Protective Services going after your children, like literally taking them from you. So there's a story, medical kidnapping. And there's a website here, medicalkidnap.com. CPS, which is Child Protective Services, fabricates abuse where none exists. And then hashtag bring back our kids. So this couple had brought their child into it was a baby, had a cut on his tongue, so he wasn't eating, was very agitated. So they called their doctor, who said, just take him to the emergency room. They took him to the emergency room, and the doctors there accused the parents of abuse and neglect because the child had a cut on their tongue, which the parents are saying that the kid got from his health care, from his daycare, excuse me. To this day, Molly and Michael have only seen their babies once since their seizure by CPS. Michael reports that the baby now has a horrendous cough since being in CPS custody, and Molly says that his little face is all scratched up. She never let that happen because she kept his nails clipped. That doesn't appear to be happening now. Robin is not herself and had diarrhea. And that's, CPS is a terrible place for children to grow up. Not only are they neglected and not loved, but they're also abused. I mean, this is not a shock to anybody. You take people away from their families and they're going to be miserable. And the mother says, it makes me scared to take my kids to the doctors ever again. When we do get them back, I'm just going to wrap all my kids in bubble wrap so nothing ever happens to them. Because if you do have to take them to the doctor, this is scary that this could happen. And that's all part of the plan. The medical establishment is being trained not only in gun control, but also in child seizure, I guess you could say. Just report anything to the government that even remotely looks like abuse or neglect or anything like that so that CPS can come in and take these children away, make them wards of the state. And the third story here, it just gets worse and worse. And then along with the medical establishment, you also have schools being indoctrination centers and considering your children theirs. So this is from the UK. Nursery school staff and registered childminders must report toddlers at risk of becoming terrorists. The directive is contained in a 39-page consultation document issued by the Home Office in a bid to bolster its Prevent Anti-Terrorism plan. Critics said the idea was unworkable and heavy-handed and accused the government of treating teachers and carers as spies. And the article goes on to say that it is the duty of these people to prevent people being drawn into terrorism. They're talking to nursery school staff. These children are 4 and 5 years old. This is the point. You got to get them into the system. And in the article, which I'll link all of these below, from TruthStream Media, they had a link to Tony Blair back from 2006 said this: if we are not prepared to predict and intervene far more early Then there are children that are going to grow up in families that we know perfectly well are completely dysfunctional. And the kids a few years down the line are going to be a menace to society and actually a threat to themselves, Blair told BBC News. There could be sanctions for parents who refused to take advice, he said. Then it clearly ceases to be advice if there's a punishment attached to it. So she's saying that the article she wrote in 2011 about that, since then, by the time the article came out between 2006 and 2011, over 34,000 nursery, primary, and secondary level students had already been labeled bigots by the system under Britain's anti-bullying rule. That's the thing. They just want control. They want to separate the family unit. They want the state and the government to be much more powerful than the family. And so along with that, there's a video here from TruthStream Media. UK teachers to tattle on toddlers at risk for becoming terrorists. So I'll link to all of these below. And I hate stories like this. They're just... And the worst part is people still send their kids to school and still defend this system when it's clear as day that it doesn't care about you or your kids. It just wants control of you and your kids. And you could talk to any parent out there, and the number one thing they say they want to do is protect their family and make sure no one hurts their children. And then they don't think twice about sending them off to learn Common Core and eat a Michelle Obama lunch while getting vaccinated by the school nurse, because that's okay. All of that stuff's okay. But when people like us try to tell them don't do that stuff, we're the whack jobs who need to be watched out for and rounded up, right? So I'll put all links to this stuff, and let's hope for brighter days.